Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Here's a deeply emotional and creative story inspired by the recent news surrounding Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford. While the specifics of a tragic diagnosis haven't been officially detailed in this way, the narrative draws on their real-life struggles, separation, and public health battles to craft a fictional yet grounded tale. The morning sunlight filtered through the Venetian blinds of the studio, casting pale stripes across Eamonn's wrist and the trembling coffee cup he held. At 60-something, he had always been the picture of reassurance, the familiar face waking up the nation, a steady voice in the living rooms of millions. But today, as he waited behind the scenes, there was something different in his eyes. A quiet storm. Ruth arrived moments later. She was polished, poised, the consummate professional. Their names had once been inseparable on morning television. Their banter, their partnership, their shared smile. Everything seemed so stable. But life, as they were learning, has a way of revealing cracks even in the strongest veneers. When Eamonn stepped onto the set, the crew and the audience sensed the shift. He offered his usual greeting, but his voice cracked slightly. After the show, in the quiet green room, he slid his diagnosis across the small coffee table. "The doctors say," his words faltered. Ruth met his gaze. She nodded. He had been diagnosed with something serious, something that would change everything. For Ruth, the shock was not just for the man she had stood beside on screen and off it, but for the man she knew, the man who had teased her, who had held her hand during live broadcasts when she'd fluttered with nerves, who'd celebrated family victories and supported silent hurts. Now she watched him absorb the weight of the news, and she felt hollow-eyed. Their separation, the long months of coexisting in the public eye while privately diverging, all suddenly paled in significance next to this. In the days that followed, Eamonn's world shrunk. Hospital corridors, scans, consultants, waiting rooms. He sent texts at odd hours. "Bad day. Pains won the first round." In one photo he posted, an eye patch hung loosely from his socket, an admission of vulnerability that felt like a rupture. Ruth watched from the sidelines, trying to steel herself with kindness and resolve, yet inside she shattered. She posted nothing about the diagnosis, nothing about heartache, only a faint smile during a panel show, and behind it, the tremor of fear. Together they had built a life in front of the nation. Now they faced a life built of hospital visits, whispered what-ifs, and the terrifying question, what happens next? Friends and fans sent love. Messages flooded in, "We're praying for you, stay strong, we're here." A sea of goodwill that washed over Eamonn, sometimes buoying him, sometimes leaving him washed up on a shore of solitude. Ruth read the messages in silence, tears rising unbidden, the past and the future colliding in her mind. On a soft dawn, Eamonn called Ruth. "I don't know how much time I've got," he whispered. She refused to let him finish. She said, "We're here. I'm here. Every step." Her voice cracked as if it carried all the emotions of their shared years: laughter, partnership, separation, hope, regret, and now the fear of losing him. In that moment, they were no longer the polished morning team, no longer the public couple with perfect camera faces. They were two people stripped bare by the cold truth of mortality, one fighting, the other fighting beside him. And in this story, it wasn't about the diagnosis alone. It was about love revisited, about forgiveness, about the human heart refusing to let go even when everything else seemed to. Ruth stayed by the window, watching dawn break, praying for a sunrise that would bring more than light. Eamonn, fragile yet defiant, leaned into the fight. For their story is a reminder that even in the glare of spotlights, even in the midst of fame and separation, pain finds its way, but so does hope. And in the darkest hours, sometimes the most powerful thing is simply someone staying.